Hi there, it's Jan here. This is actually take 2. This is the cut list for the Christmas folio that we're going to be doing. I must apologise up front that I haven't made videos for quite a while, actually, for over 6 months or so, and so I'm a little bit rusty, but I'm going to do the best I can. I hope you can understand it. Like I said in the post that I put up on the site, I tried writing this out in various different ways so that you have a written cut list, but it just doesn't work. It's just too confusing. So I'm going to do it as this video, which is the video prior to us assembling it, so that you can get all your papers and your cardstock and everything ready, you know, so that you're ready to go. Okay. So for this I used I think it is 250 gram weight card, and basically it's about the same thickness as a cereal box. Unfortunately, we're not going to wrap this with paper, so you can't actually use a cereal box, which you could do if you were making an album, for example. But but it's just to give you an idea that the weight of card I'm using here is about that of a cereal box. It's you know, kind of the weight that you would use if you were making a good quality Christmas or birthday card, greeting card or whatever. So please ignore all my writing bits. This is all kind of for me, although you may find some use for it as well. Right, okay, so let's start. The first thing that you need is 2 pieces of card which measure 11 3/8 by 8 inches. Now that's not far short of 2 A4 pieces of card. You just have to trim off a tiny bit on them. So 11 3/8 by 8 inches, which is 20.8 centimetres by 20.3. 28.8 centimetres by 20.3. And what you do is you stick 1/2 inch tape down one of the edges, and then you overlap them and you join them, as you can see probably there that I've done, and that gives you an overall length then of about 22.3 inches. I'm just trying to see if I've actually got that written down in centimetres. I don't think I have actually, but anyway, kind of that's what it will give you. So I've done as many of the centimetres and metric as I can, but I've used a converter chart from Google, so I'm hoping that it, you know, it'd be a good idea for you to check it really, just to make absolutely sure. Right, okay, so once you've done that, as I say, you'll end up with a piece that is about 22 3/8 by 8 inches. Oh, I have written it down, hold on. That is 56.8 by 20.3 centimetres. Then, once you have that long length, you need to score it. And it doesn't matter from which end, but just choose an end. Doesn't make any difference because we're going to be turning it backwards and forwards. So from one end, you need to score, I've started at this end, this right hand end. You need to score at 5 inches, at 5 3/4 inches, at 11 5/8 inches, and that is the equivalent of 12.7 centimetres, 14.6 and 29.5 centimetres. Then you turn the whole thing round, and so you're going to be scoring kind of from the other end back again, and then you score at 2 3/8, 3 3/4 and 9 5/8, which is at 6 centimetres, at 9.5 and at 24.4 centimetres. And I'm going to ask you to mark on your cardstock lightly with pencil what number pages and what they are, because we've got so many bits of other stuff to, you know, so many bits of design paper and flips and flaps that you could very easily get kind of confused with it. In this one, I'm not going to use magnets, but I will tell you where the magnets go if you want to use magnets. On this one, I'm going to use a ribbon closure, and for that ribbon closure, you're going to need a piece that's about, well, just less than 1 metre, I suppose. It's about 32 inches long, so just less than 1 metre. Best to be on the safe side, really, and cut it kind of longer, because you can always cut it down again after that. Right, okay, so the first step you need to do, once you have all your score lines, you need to start folding it. So you fold them up, make sure that the sides line up perfectly, even, you know, even if your score lines might be out just a tiny bit, but make sure that your sides line up, and just give them a fairly good burnish. If you find your cardstock is starting to split, which it does with some, I mean, I'm lucky here it hasn't at all, but if you find it does, then give it a very light misting with water before you fold it over and burnish it. Just, you don't want to soak it at all, you want just the lightest misting really, and that will help you. Right, okay, so once you've got all of your pieces folded up and burnished, on one side, so starting from, hold on, we're going to have the flap closure on this side here. So, starting from the side here, where you made your 5-inch score line, which was your 12.7 score line, we're going to call that, if you just write on here, page 1 envelope page, and you can write on here 2 envelopes. Okay, then this piece here, this small piece here, which is hold on, let me look, 3/4 of an inch, which brings you up to 14.6. On this piece here, this is called small spine outside right, if you can put that on there. Then this side of it, on the next piece, which takes us up to the score line at 11 5/8, which is 29.5 centimetres, you need to write front cover. Okay, then you had been working back from the other way, if you remember. So on this side, this smallest side here, which is the 2 3/8 or 6 centimetres, you need to write outside closure. And then next to it you have a wider piece, and excuse me, that was scored at 3 3/4, which was your 9.5, and you need to put outside spine right. Then the next piece, which should be this piece here, you need to mark this as back outside, and that leaves you with one final one of these same size wide spines as this, and you call that outside spine left. Okay, then you turn your cardstock to the inside, and starting from this where we've put outside closure on this side, inside that you're going to write page 8 front closure inside. Then on the spine that we labelled as outside spine right, on the inside of that you're going to put 7, 7A and 7B, and you're going to call that inside spine right. Okay, the next piece, which on the outside we labelled as back outside, inside that we're going to call that page 6 centre. I apologise if you hear any little dogs barking. That's my little dogs in the background. I've shut them out of the room, but they're not very happy with that, so sorry. Right, now next to that page 6 centre, you have that other spine, the other wide spine, which we've called outside spine left. And inside that, you're going to label this as 5, 5A and 5B, inside spine left. And then next to that, you have the next largest piece, and on the front of it, we called it front cover. Inside, we're going to call it page 4 waterfall. Then we have, after that, we have this small spine, which on the outside we labelled as small spine outside right. Inside, we're going to call it 3A and 3B. And then your final piece, which on the outside we called page 1 envelope page, on the inside we're going to call it page 2 tunnel page. Okay, so once you have all that labelled up and folded and burnished, you can put that aside for a while, because that's the sort of main difficult piece we need. Then we're going to start working on some of these pieces. Now, I may not have them in the right order, but it doesn't make any difference actually. So the first piece you're going to need to cut is 4 inches by 4 inches, a 4-inch square obviously, which is 10.1 by 10.1, and we're going to label that as front closure. And that needs to be in about the same weight as the weight of your, you know, your overall base that you made. So that's your front closure. And once you have that labelled up, we can put that aside. Now we're going to turn to a lighter weight cardstock. And I have used, I think it's 160 gram, but it's, you know, just one step up from paper really. It's what you would make sort of an ordinary greeting card from, so it's, you know, I hope you can tell anyway. So it's not as thick as the outside cover, and the reason for that is because it will become so solid inside that you won't be able to kind of turn the pages and flip and everything. So, okay, let's have a look. Let me just go through some of these and see what I've got. Right, okay, so the next piece that you're going to need is a piece that is 6.5 by 6.5, which is 16.5 by 16.5 centimetres. And this is labelled number 4, waterfall pocket. So what you need to do, what you can do in preparation, is you score it at 1/2 inch on 3 of the sides. You don't score the top side. So that is at 1.2 centimetres. And then where this overlaps here, you see you have a little square here. And we're going to remove that. We're going to cut that out completely. Now you'll see that you have score lines that go down and across. We're going to cut those score lines off. We don't need them. We don't need to see them. So the piece that you cut out, when you carefully cut it, like that and like that, this square here will have your score lines on it. I don't know if you can see that. Let me just kind of lift that up and see if you can see that. That has your score lines on it. We don't need that, that's waste. That leaves you with this piece here. So I'm using tape. I'm using 1/2 inch tape, which is 1.2 centimetres tape. You can use wet glue tape. I'm using tape for sort of speed really, because I, you know, want to try and cut down on the time of the videos. So once you've cut the corners out, you need to tape the sides on the right side of this. So you tape here, here and here. If you're gluing, then obviously don't do that yet. Okay, so that's number 4 waterfall pocket. The next piece is we're going to label this as 4B. This is 5 3/4 by 1 1/2, which is 14.6 by 3.8 centimetres. You just need one of these, and you don't need to do anything to it. It's just 4B pocket. Put that aside. You are going to need a piece that measures 5 1/2 by 3 1/2, which is 13.9 by 8.9, and you're going to label this 4C closure. And then that doesn't need anything doing to it. You can put that aside. Another piece you're going to need here, let's just take this off for the moment, we don't need that. Right, this is going to be 4D tag, and the piece that you need is 5 1/2 by 4 inches, which is 13.9 by 10.1. And this is the tab that fits inside the waterfall pocket, and you can have several of these. You could have all different sizes, none of them longer than 5 1/2 inches though, which is 13.9 centimetres, because that you know, that's the maximum length they can be. But you can have them any width, so you can make tags, you can make tabs. I think probably it will hold about 4. I've just made 1, but you can, you know, make 4. So this is 4D tag, and put that aside. That doesn't need anything else doing to it. Right, okay, now we are going to move on to threes. So we're going to go back a bit and we're going to do the threes. Now you need 2 pieces that you're going to cut at 5 by 3 1/2, which is 12.7 by 8.8, and along the 3 1/2 edge here, so this side, you're going to score at 1/2 inch, which is 1.2 centimetres. Okay, if you want to, you can also put some tape ready on your outside edges. So then once you've scored it, you're going to fold it under and burnish it. Okay, so that's 2 of those, and these are labelled as 3A and 3B flip. Put those aside. Right, okay, now we're going to go to, let's go to 6. So now you're going to need 2 pieces, which you're going to label 6A and 6B centre, or centre flip. Okay, and both pieces you need to cut at 5 3/4 by 5, which is 14.6 by 12.7 centimetres, and along the let me find my ruler. So it's 5 across this way and 5 3/4 this way. So this is the shortest width, and down the edge here you're going to score at 1/2 inch, and again fold and burnish it. Okay, now on this one, on these 2, if you're going to attach tape, you then need to turn them over to the wrong side and attach your tape to the inside here rather than the outside. Okay, right, so that's those 2, and they are labelled 6A and 6B centre flip. We'll cut, you can see that we're kind of dotting about a bit, but that's just because I've done it in order of size really rather than anything else. So the next piece you're going to need, we're going to label it page 2 tunnel, and the piece you need is 8 1/4 by 5 7/8, which is 20.9 by 14.9 centimetres. And just like we did before, you're going to score it on 3 sides, so the 2 long sides and 1 of the shorter sides. Don't score it on the top there. Now that again will give us these little squares, and we're going to cut those squares out. So don't forget that we're going to cut off the whole score line. So I don't know if you can see this, what I'm doing. I'm hoping this is in shot. Unfortunately, with my rig up, I can't actually see what I'm doing. I can only kind of do it. So you cut out that square, taking with it all the score lines. We don't need those. And then you apply tape. Obviously, if you're using glue, you don't, but then you apply tape down the 2 long sides and the bottom. Now, the next thing that you need to do with this is you need to measure in 2.5 inches on the side that we didn't fold. You're going to measure in 2.5 inches or 6.3 centimetres and put a little mark. Okay, so that little mark, hold on, it's 2.5 inches from the score line. So if you fold that under, that gives us our kind of basic size, like that. Then you measure across 2.5 inches and you put a little mark there. And what that's for is because we're going to use a centre punch or a die, and we're actually going to cut a semicircle out as a finger space. Let me just see if I've got a punch handy. Yes, I have. And the way that we're going to do that is, if you have your punch, turn it upside down and line it up so that you can see your centre mark, and you can make sure it's in the centre, sort of about there. And then we're going to snip this out, and that will give you that, you know, that kind of finger hole which you're going to need. Right, so this is going to be labelled page 2 tunnel pocket, or page 2 tunnel. The next piece you're going to need is just an ordinary flat piece, which is labelled page 8 side pocket, and that is 2 inches by 4 inches, and that is 5 centimetres by 10.1 centimetres. Okay, I hope you're still with me. I hope you're doing okay so far, because now we're going to get on to some of the little bit more complicated pieces. Let's do this whole waterfall piece. Let me take these off. This is all the DSP that we're going to be needing. Right, so this is the waterfall, which is pretty standard in most folios and quite a lot of albums actually. It's a feature of most of them. So what you're going to need to do here is you're going to cut 6 pieces, all the same, which are 4 by 5.5, which is 10.1 by 13.9. And along the, you know, this top edge, the widest edge, you're going to score at 1/2 inch, which is 1.2 centimetres. So all 6 pieces will look exactly the same. Hold on, let me show you. All 6 pieces will look exactly the same. And you're going to label all of them 4A waterfall. Okay, 4A waterfall. Let me put that out of the way. And our last kind of fixture piece, well, it isn't actually. I'm trying to find what I've done with my, oh, there they are. Right, let's go to this piece because it's slightly easier than this piece. You're going to need to cut out, if I move these out of the way, you're going to need to cut Sorry, it seems a little bit confusing, but it really isn't. Right, the first thing that you need is a piece that measures 11 5/8 by 8, and that's 29.5 by 20.3. Again, that's almost an A4 sheet. You just need to cut a little piece off of that. And you're going to score it at 5.5 inches, which is 13.9 centimetres from one end, and then you turn the whole thing round and score it the same 5.5 inches or 13.9 from the other end. And the reason we turn it round is because this piece in the middle doesn't fit on a scoreboard. It's an odd number, an odd figure. It's like something like about, you know, 9/16 or something. So you know, whatever it is, I don't know. I've just made that number off the top of my head, but it's, you know, you can't sort of do it on a scoreboard. So you measure across from one side 5.5, then turn it around and measure 5.5 the other side, and score both of those lines, which gives you like a hinge, a gusset. So it will look like that. It looks like a book cover when you've done it. And on that side, so you've scored under, on that side, this outside edge, you can apply tape. So, you know, that's going to stick down. All right. And you're going to call this, you're going to label this as page 5, fold out left. Now you're also you have also another piece of paper, another piece of cardstock exactly the same, which you're going to do exactly the same too, same measurements, everything, but you're going to call it page 7 fold out. Okay, because there are 2 fold outs. So this is page 5 and this is page 7. It's just how you label it. Page 7 fold out right. So one is fold out left and one is fold out right. Okay, let me put that outside for the moment and move that across out of the way. Now, the next thing you're going to need is 2 more pieces for each side. So the first piece, let me see if I have measurements on the other one that I did. I don't know if I wrote the measurements down actually. I may not have done. No, I didn't. Right, okay, so let me refer to my little sheet that I have here. So these are, again, pages 5 and 7. So just doing one of them for the moment. You've done the 11 5/8 by 8 piece. That was that part. That's the 5. Right, now you need to cut 2 pieces that are 6 by 8 inches and 6 by 8 inches, and in centimetres that is 8 inches is, sorry, I'm just having to kind of measure this as I go. 8 inches is 20.4, looks like 20.4 by 15.3. So you're going to cut 2 of these and you're going to score down the long edge at 1/2 inch, which is, what did we say 1/2 inch was? 1.2 or something, didn't we? Something like 1.2 or whatever. So you're going to label these 5A and 5B, and you're going to call these fold out left and fold out right. You're also going to need 2 more exactly the same, and you're going to call those number 7, A and B, fold out right and fold out left. Okay, so in actual fact you'll have 4 of these, 2 labelled as 5, A and B, and 2 labelled as 7, A and B, because they, you know, they're exactly the same. The fold out that goes in the middle is exactly the same. on both sides. Right, and for that fold out section you're going to need a pocket which measures 9 inches by 2.5 inches, which is 22.8 by 6.4, and again 20 by 6.4, yes, and again you're going to score at 1/2 inch or 1.2 on 3 of the sides, leaving one long side kind of open. Again, that will give you your little squares in the corners, and you need to cut those out. Okay, so you're going to need 2 of those. You're going to need a 5C pocket and a 7C pocket. Right, so let me just show you the original album, and hopefully that will kind of put the whole thing into perspective. Let me move this for a moment. Right, so the pieces that we're talking about at the moment are these flips here. So this would be 5, and that's your 5C pocket, and this is the equivalent 7, and that's your 7C pocket, and you can see how they fold in together like that. And then inside are all those pieces that I've just told you about. All those pieces that I've just asked you to cut are these pieces that make up this large flip out, one to the left and one to the right, like that. I hope you can see all this in shot. Let me just check that I'm doing the best I can with it. Yeah, and those other, you know, when I said to you about doing the center flips, that's these pieces. Now again, on here I added a magnet, and you can either choose to add a magnet if you want to, or you don't have to, because it will stay flat because it's got all of this lot holding it down like that. Okay, right, let's remove this for the moment so that we don't confuse things. The piece that we're going to do now is this fold out, this pull out kind of booklet. Okay, so let me give you the measurements for that. I would say that this piece here is the most complicated, most involved piece, and even this is pretty simple. So you know, it's fine. It may seem daunting, but if you break it down into little steps, it is actually really fine. So we're going to start with, sorry, I've got all my DSPs on top of it as well. Right, we're going to start with 2 pieces that are cut exactly the same, and they measure 7 1/8 by 4 3/8, which is 18 centimetres by 11.1 centimetres. And at the top of both of them, you're going to score at 3/8 of an inch, which is 0.9 centimetres, like this. Now, on one of them, on the outside, you need to apply some tape, because what we are going to do eventually is we're going to join these two to make one long piece with one centre gusset, but we don't need to do that just now. So you need to label these once you've got them cut and you've scored them and burnished them. We're going to label these as 2A booklet, and on one side, the side that doesn't have the tape, if you're using tape, is called 2A booklet cover. The other one, where you do have the tape, is 2A booklet. So that's actually going to be the back of it, right? So let's put those aside for a moment. The next pieces you're going to need, let me remove these. The next piece you're going to need is one piece which is cut to 11 1/8 by 4 3/8, which is 28.3 by 11.1, and you're going to turn it kind of landscape wise, and you're going to score at 5.5 and 5 3/4, which is 13.9 and 14.6, and that will give you a small gusset that we're going to use. And this one is eventually going to fit inside this one. And then you're going to, and so that needs to be labelled as 2B booklet. And just on one side mark cover, and on the other side is obviously going to be the back, but you don't need to mark that. Right, this is just so that we can keep track of it. Yes, that's that. And the last piece to this booklet, let me remove all of these bits, these design paper bits. You're going to need one piece again of card, which you're going to cut to 8 by 4 3/8, which is 11.1 by 20.3. And you're going to call this 2C booklet, and you're going to score at 4 and 4 1/8 along this in the middle here, and that is 10.1 by 10.1 and 10.4 centimetres, and that gives you a little tiny kind of 1/8 of an inch, I hope you can see that, 1/8 of an inch kind of gusset there, and that's going to fit right inside the booklet. So basically you have quite a lot of little pages for this booklet. So you're going to have the outside cover. Let's move those for a moment. You're going to have the outside cover, which is going to fit together like that. Like that. Then inside it you're going to have one that is slightly smaller. That's going to fit in there like that, I hope you can see. And in the centre you're going to have the smallest one, which will fit in there like that, so that when you come to flip it open, you'll have all of these different sort of pages, which you can obviously put photos on, or use it for a journaling spot, or just put some nice design paper on it. Make it nice and sort of attractive, nice and pretty. Right, so that's that. I did all the flips and flaps, didn't I, on the pages 6 and everything. Right, okay. Right, I think I've done all of the cardstock now. So what we need to do now is just to look at your design series papers, which I'll just call DSPs. Right, let me see what I've actually got here. I didn't label these, which is very clever. So, okay, for the outside of the album, and I've tried to get mine to, you know, sort of be the same colour, same design all the way around the outside, but obviously you can do it as you please. So this is just as a reminder what my original one looks like. Hold on, come out of there. You go in there. You fold over there. You can come out for a moment. That folds in there. This is just how the whole thing folds up, if you remember. Oops. Goodness me. That's better. Yes, that's right. That all folds over like this, and like this. So for my one, go back in there, I've tried to keep the same design series paper all the way around, but as I say, it's entirely up to you. You can do exactly how you would like to do it, but that's just to give you an idea. So the outside covers, all of the outside stuff is this lot here, and you're going to need, let me get the actual album back, because it's all written on here. So for the outside, if you're doing it all in one paper, or you know, however you're doing it, the design series papers you're going to need is two pieces that are, one piece that is 7 3/4 by 2, and that is 19.6 by 5. In all cases, pretty much all cases, they're 1/4 of an inch smaller, you know, so you've got an 1/8 of an inch gap and an 1/8 of an inch gap all the way round. The outside spine right is 7 3/4 by 1.5, which is 19.6 by 3.8. The back outside is 7 3/4 by 5 3/4, which is 19.6 by 14.6. The second of those large spines is exactly the same size actually as the first one, which is 7 3/4 by 1.5, which is 19.6 by 3.8, and that's outside spine left. Then comes your front cover, come out of the way, hold flat please, which will be 7 3/4 by 5 3/4, which is 19.6 by 14.6. I've done some kind of strange thing, so it could be good if you can double check it yourself just to make sure. Your small spine outside right is 7 3/4 by 5/8 of an inch, which is 19.6 by 1.5. And your page 1 envelope page, which I think I did in a different paper, I'm not sure, is 7 3/4 by 4 3/4, which is 19.6 by 12. Now, the other thing that you're going to need for this envelope page are two envelopes that are already, you know, that you folded up. Let me see if I can show you on this one, just to remind you. So that's these two. And if you have a scoreboard, you know, an envelope punch board, that's fine. That's brilliant. If not, then maybe use the photo tutorial that I gave you for how to make any size rectangular envelopes. And the finished sizes need to take a 4.5 by 3.5 inch kind of card. So hang on, let me go back to this. Sorry, flapping about a bit. So the whole overall outside size, hopefully you can see this, the whole overall outside size, regardless of the flap, obviously the flap's, you know, sort of going over, so the whole outside size needs to be 4.5 by 3.5, and you need 2 of those. Okay, so that's all your outside papers. Let's move those. Pop those there for a moment. I hope they're not going to sort of get in the way for you. Right, so page 2, which is your tunnel page, you have your tunnel that we cut out here. And the DSP, your design series paper, is going to be 7.5 by 4 5/8, which is 19 by 11.7. You're going to do exactly the same as we did with this, only obviously it's going to be shorter, but you just kind of butt your paper up. So for example, I think it's this one that I'm going to use. You bring it up here, which will give you a bigger gap at the bottom, and then you cut out your semicircle in the same place, because when we put it back down where it's supposed to be, that will give you that white edge that goes right round the outside of this, as well as the 2 outside edges, as well as the outside edges here. Okay, so and you just need to make a note that this is the page 1 outside tunnel piece. Then you have your small spine inside, which is the same size as the outside actually, which is 7 3/4 by 5/8, which is 19.6 by 1.5. There are going to be some special instructions for this piece as we do the album, but if you cut the piece as I'm saying at the moment, we're actually going to cut into it as we make the album. So don't worry about that at the moment. Then you have the 2 flips, and they were, let's see if I can find them. Yeah, here they are. These are the 2 flips. These are 3, A and B, and you need 4 pieces of the design series paper, cut to 3 1/4 by 4 1/4, which is 8.2 by 10.8 centimetres. Put those out of the way. The next piece you're going to need is your waterfall backing paper, and you need a piece of DSP which is 7 3/4 by 5 1/2. That's 19.6 by 14. And let me see if I can locate it, what I've done with it. Waterfall backing page, that's the piece that I'm going to be using. So that's going to fit on there. You only need 1 of these pieces. On these pieces, as you can see, I've actually put tape all the way around the outside and 2 strips down the middle, and that's on all of the pieces of designer series paper. Some of them I've put 1 strip down the middle, but all of the others, everything, I've put the tape all the way around the outside. Just because it's going to save us time, and it's something that you can do. You can't kind of make a mistake with that really. Okay, so that waterfall backing paper you will have marked on the back outside, you know, the waterfall, your waterfall DSP. This piece, waterfall DSP. Okay. Right, I haven't put tape on that, just to prove a point that I've said I have put tape on it. That's my waterfall backing page. Just because I've said I've put tape on all of them, I actually haven't, but there you go. I will do before we do the actual video. Right, the next piece, no, let's stick with the waterfall, because this is kind of a bit, you know, you might think, ooh, that's strange, but it's the truth. Let me find my waterfall. Here it is. Now, we cut 6 pieces of this, didn't we? And we scored 1/2 inch from the top. So you're going to need 3 pieces of design series paper. I've got mine. 1, 2, 3 pieces of design series paper. Fortunately, I've put the tape around the outside, which measure 8.3 by 13.3 centimetres, or 3 1/4 by 5 1/4 inches. So you're going to need 3 of those. That's those 3. And then you're going to need 14 pieces, 14 of these little strips that measure 5 1/4 by 1/2 inch, which is 13.3 by 1.2 centimetres. And the reason for that is that it's kind of just a waste of paper, and it makes too much bulk as well if you line back and front every single waterfall page. So we just put a strip on the bottom so that your photo fits above it, and this shows below, which is, you know, very attractive. Looks really nice. Okay, so that's your waterfall page. Let's put all these together, put them out of the way. Now, also on that page you have a pocket, and that pocket is, where did I put it? Over here. That's this piece here. That's your 4B pocket, And your design series paper for this will be 5 5/8 by 1 3/8, which is 13 by 3.5 centimetres. And basically you just need to put tape around the outside of it. It doesn't need anything, you know, there's no scoring and folding and things like that. Oh, there it is. Is that it? No, there it is. And you just mark that as waterfall pocket, because that's going to go just on there like that. Okay, so that's your waterfall pocket. Now also for that page, if you remember, we used a tag to keep it closed, and the tag is, she says, looking around, here we are. This is the closure tag, which I've called 4C closure, and the design series paper you're going to need is 5 1/4 by 3 1/4, which is 13.3 by 8.3 centimetres. And for this is entirely your preference. You can either cut 2 of those and cover both sides, or you can just cut one and leave the other side for either journaling on or sticking photo or whatever you want to do. Okay, so that is, where's my pieces? There, that's my piece that I'm going to use. I've decided to leave mine blank on the outside, so that I just have it, oops, sorry, I've dropped something on the floor, so that I just have it, you know, covered on one side. And then the tag, the actual tag that fits in the back, as we mentioned before, you can have maybe up to 4 of these, but for one, the design series paper is going to be 5 1/4 by 3 3/4, which is 13.3 by 9.5, and that's mine. So that's all of my waterfall stuff there, pocket included. And they are all labelled page 4 waterfall. Okay. Now the next thing we come to is the inside spine, which is the first of those wider spines. And the design series paper you're going to need for that is 7 3/4 by 1 1/2. Actually, it's not 1 1/2. I think it's 1 1/4 when I came to measure it again. Yes, it is. It's 1 1/4. So that's my mistake there. So it's 7 3/4 by 1 1/4. 7 3/4 by 1 3/4, which is this one here. And you're going to need 2 of these pieces to fit down here. Now that measures 19.6 centimetres by 3.2 centimetres. Yes, my mistake there, I'd put 3.8, but actually it's 3.2. So you're going to need 2 of those pieces, and they're going to go down these 2 spines here, like that. Right? Your centre, which is page 6, centre, you're going to need a piece of design series paper, which is 7 3/4 by 5 3/4. That's my centre back, like that. You need to, oh, the reason I didn't put tape around this is one reason why, and that is because, you know, we've made these flips that are going to go on there. Hold on, see if I can find them. Oh, here they are. These are labelled 6A and 6B centre flips. It's because we're actually going to stick them to the designer series paper by folding that underneath, and then we're going to fold that underneath like that before we stick the whole designer series paper down. That way you don't see all these hinges and everything. Makes it nice and tidy when you open it up. Okay, so the design series paper for this is 7 3/4 by 5 3/4, which is 19.6 by 14.6, labelled as centre back page 6. Then you have your 2 flips, which are 6A and 6B, and your design series papers for these are going to be 5 1/2 by 4 1/4, which is 13.9 by 10.8. and I've cut 4 because I'm going to cover the outside and the inside, but you know, again, you don't have to if you don't want to. So that's everything that goes in that centre back page. Then comes your big fold outs. That's my page 3 tag. That's my small spine piece. Right, okay, so now comes the more kind of daunting piece, I suppose. You're going to need to cut 14, pretty sure it's 14 pieces of paper, pieces of design series paper for your fold outs. Let me just double check. So you don't forget, you have a set of fold outs for the right and a set of fold outs for the left. Let's go back to the fold outs first. What you can do is to fix these together. So your first piece, where I asked you to score it so that you have a spine like this, if you remember, we cut it at 11 5/8 by 8, which was 29.5 by 20.3. And we scored it from one side and then turned it round and scored it the other side. Okay, if you take that, it doesn't really matter which side, because one's going to be stuck there and the other one's going to be stuck there. But to make up this booklet, this fold outs, so that it ends up looking like this, which is what it should do. Hope you can see that. Hope I'm still in frame. You can actually at this point stick them together. I'm going to go back over this in the actual tutorial, so don't worry if you don't want to do this yet. But what you can do is take this is the piece where we have the fold, and then I've used one of the flaps here underneath so that it folds back like that, and then I've used the other piece stuck to this so that it folds out again like that. Okay, so don't worry if that sounds confusing. I mean, if you can kind of grasp it, then go ahead and do it, but we're going to be doing it in the tutorial, so don't worry. But like I say, you're going to need 16 pieces of design series paper, which is a lot, obviously. Now what I've used is I have cut as many as I can out of 4 sheets of design series paper, and the rest I'm actually going to make up by piecing together some of my scraps. And the way I would do that is I'm going to cut a piece, or however many pieces I need, of thin photocopy paper to the same size, and stick my design paper scraps to it, and then stick that to the front of the cardstock. But you need to end up with, I don't know what they are, you're going to need to end up with 16 pieces that are 7 3/4 by 5 1/4, which is 13.3 by 19.7. I should hasten to add actually that I used one 12 by 12 inch pad for all of this. You would probably need 1.5 8 by 8 inch pads. You can't use a 6 by 6 unless you want to paper piece together on every page, and that's just, it's nice, but it's just too much work really for me. So I chose to use one complete pad, and I have some over. I have enough large scraps left over after doing this to do photo tags and all sorts of things which we're going to slip in the pockets. Okay, so just to go back over this, we need 16 pieces that are 7 3/4 by 5 1/4 or 13.3 by 19.7 centimetres, and that's for both sides. That takes up both sides. You're also going to need, because there's a pocket on one of them, you're also going to need, let's move this out of the way so it's not too confusing for you. You're also going to need 2 pieces of design series paper which are 7 3/4 by 1 7/8 or 19.6 by 2.2 centimetres, and that's to cover the pocket on the right and the pocket on the left. Nearly there, so you can kind of breathe a sigh of relief. Okay, right, we've already covered this inside spine because that's the same as the one here. This is 5 and this is 7, this being page 6. So page 8, which is the inside front closure, is going to be, is this it? Yes, this is it. The inside front closure, you're going to need a piece which is 7 3/4 by 2, and actually I'm going to change this and make it a little bit bigger, by 2, 17 3/4 by 2 1/4. So that will be 19.6 by 6 centimetres. So I'm just going to make mine a little bit bigger. Well, I'm not actually. I'm going to keep it like that, and I'm going to add a spare piece that I've cut off to make a little nice little strip on there. It just looked a bit, you know, too many gaps around it to me when I kind of started making it up. So that's for that piece. You're going to need, for the pocket, which was 2 by 4, which was 5 by 10.1, you're going to need a piece of design series paper which is 1 7/8 by 3 7/8, and that is 4.8 by 9.8, and that's the pocket that's going to go on top, and then we put a tag in here. You have 4 by 4 closure, which is that piece on the front of the album. Let me see if I can show you. That's this piece, which flaps over. All these magnets, they want to stick to each other instead of doing what they're supposed to do. Right, that's the piece that flaps over here. That's 4.4. You can make that any size you want to. If you have, I just happen to have a piece that I wanted to use that was 4 by 4. You can make it, I don't know, 3 by 3, 6, whatever you want to do, because it's just decorative, and you can either put a magnet in it or not. It's up to you. So if you're making it as 4 by 4, you're going to need a piece of design series paper which is 3 7/8 by 3 7/8. You're going to need 2 pieces of design series paper which are 9.8 by 9.8. That leaves us with a piece for the waterfall pocket. It's got written on it, we write on it number 4 waterfall pocket, and it was 6.5 by 6.5 and then scored on 3 sides. You don't need to cover this with design series paper because your actual waterfall pages are going to cover this, so that's why I haven't mentioned it. Okay, so that is everything that you're going to need. Absolutely everything. That's all your materials. And like I say, oh gosh, I have no idea what these are for. I'm going to find out sooner or later. Like I say, you can, and what is a time-saving feature is to, if you're going to use tape, is to tape all around the edges of each one. Okay? But don't stick them in the, you know, don't stick them in this first. The other thing that, if you're going to use magnets, you're going to need are some magnets. And I use this size. They're pretty strong. They are 7, looks like 7 millimeters. No, sorry, I'm talking about 7. 1.1 or 1.2 millimeters, centimeters, 1.1 or 1.2 centimeters across, which is just very slightly more than ½ an inch. And these are the strong ones, the really strong ones. I wouldn't go smaller than this. I think they look like 2 mil, maybe they're 1 mil. Let me look, see if I can tell. No, they're 1 mil actually. 1 mil thickness. But anyway, they're that size. I wouldn't go smaller than that because they're too, they won't take the weight. I do have other magnets that I use for other things, which are, let's see if I can get one off. Oh, come off, you devil. Which are this size. No, you don't. Which are that size. So you can see the difference. But they won't hold, because you need it to hold through several pieces of paper. So these won't hold. So you need this size at least. And you're going to need, you need 2 for here and here to keep this front down. You have an option of using 1 on that, you know, that square piece that we spoke about. And you have an option of using 1 on the centre, flip up and flip down, which would make 4 pairs of these magnets if you're going to use them, but you don't have to. That's what I'm saying. So I'm going to make, I used them on the other one, I'm not going to use them on this one. Right, okay, so I hope all of that makes sense to you. I'm so sorry that I can't write it all down, but I'm sure as we've gone through it, you can see why. You may actually be able to take the measurements from this video because they're written all over my, you know, pieces of card that I'm going to be using. So basically, just to show you again, this, once you have this scored, it's going to fold up like this. So this tunnel page is going to fold inside, leaving you with this envelope page. That's then going to fold over again. So there's your small spine. That's going to fold over again. And this flip page is going to fold over here. And it will look like this. Once you have your magnets and your closure, it will look like this inside. And that's going to be the outside. Okay? Right, so I'll get this uploaded so that you can start marking it out, and then I will move on to making the actual video to put it all together. See you soon. Bye now.